Welcome to day 23, and we get a hyper extreme age statement whiskey grain. Here's what's amazing to me. This is North British 30-year-old from AD Rattray at 58.5% single grain. Instantly, when you pick up the nose, you get grain whiskey. That sort of slight soapy, shiny, metallic note. Heavy vanilla, heavy perfume, kind of, but like roses, like the rich flower perfume. But there is that fresh wash. Now, here's the interesting thing about this. This is 30-year-old whiskey. Look at the color of that. That's amazing. You can never get that in the US. It's way too hot. The evaporation of it just smells like bread. It smells like cornbread. So here's what happened. North British is a distillery that goes back to the 1800s. It's in Edinburgh. The North British distiller, and what happened was we had all these distilleries making blended, or all these companies making blended malts, or blended scotch. And in blended scotch, pretty typically in the budget lines, they're dominantly grain whiskey, then with malts added for roundness and flavoring, right? So you start with a base of grain spirits, which means column still, and it means it could be corn, wheat, barley. It could be a mix of different things, but it's going through a column still, and then they're adding pot still malt whiskey to that column still grain whiskey, and that's creating your blends. Grain whiskey is going to be in every one of your most famous budget blends. So you had all of these guys who are making budget blends, you know, and they needed a consistent and quality supply of grain whiskey for the blends, so they banded together and created the North British Distillery that specialized in grain whiskey. And so North British is in a lot of the budget scotches, but remember the rules that all scotch has to be at least 3 years old in oak. That includes grain whiskey. So even the grain whiskey coming out of things is going to be aged a minimum of 3 years before it's used in the blends, right? But this is 30 years. What I want to know is how much whiskey was left in that cask. Because good night. Whoa. Okay, I let it evaporate for a little bit, and then I picked it up, and after swirling it, it jumped out of the glass with honey. But like honey on a cheese plate where it also has like the honeycomb with it and everything. Okay, man, here's what's weird. There's a slight bitterness to the aftertaste. I'm guessing because it's so old. But if you had poured this for me and not told me what it was, I would have bet money that you had poured me an Irish whiskey. I would never have guessed Scotch. Even if you said, remember, you can make grain whiskey in Scotland, because all I'm going to be thinking is Port Dundas, Cameron Bridge. I would have forgotten about North British. And this nose, and the taste, well, there is a mustiness to the nose. I would have thought maybe pot still Irish. But that taste, it reminds me of Irish whiskey. It is butter and honey and slight floral, a little bit of bitterness at the end. Now it doesn't have the brittle metallic vanillas like the icing vanilla. It doesn't have that. This is a deep vanilla, like vanilla extract, maybe even Mexican vanilla extract, which is even sweeter. I'm digging this. This is cool. When I pick this up, I always think candy corn, which is weird. But that kind of hyper sugared round candy. This is giving me nothing that I expect from a really old whiskey. Because from a really old whiskey, you expect all this dark, deep notes. And even though this is 30 years old, it still lives entirely on the mid-highs to highs spectrum. I'm gonna add a little bit of water since this is so high. And I'm gonna throw the cap on the ground. All right. That made it a little more bitter. No. It brought back the metallic bitterness. Now, leave that one alone. Don't add water. This is good. Okay, so it's 23 days, my friends. You know what that means. That means if you haven't done your Christmas shopping, emergency bells should be going off now. So, good luck to you. Until tomorrow, may your crazy stay this side of legal, and may you return before we have time to miss you. Cheers.